Hey, I'm T.A. Charlie, and welcome to the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bakanovic. Homeroom is on Rumble. You just go to Rumble and search the channels for the Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. It might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast, it's easy, it's free. I did it, you can do it. For those technologically challenged members of the class, you can also catch us on Facebook and YouTube. After the show, it's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and BitChute. Just look for The Road to Concord. You can go to the blog page, that's theroadtoconcord.com. That's where you'll find all your show notes, study notes, and handouts for the class. The phone is working. If you don't know how to call in, email us and we'll think about it. Finally, you can email a professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. He's a little slow, but he'll eventually get around to emailing you back. This show is currently mainly listener-sponsored. If you are interested in advertising your business on the show, please email us. With that said, we ask for your participation on a value-for-value basis. If you find our show of value to you, then you provide an equivalent portion of your labor and treasure through the donate link on the Road to Concord blog page, the show description on Rumble, and in the comments on the other streams. And thank you to all of you who have and will support this show.
Good morning. Welcome to the Road to Concord. Today's Monday, May 11th, 2026. I'm your host, Joe Bakanovic. Before I get going today with what I sort of kind of have planned, if you're just stumbling on this show for the first time, we like to tell you that I'm an acquired taste. Today will be one of those shows that proves it, more than likely. If you've known me for a while, I've got my philosopher's hat on right now. I mean, the one that has the degree in philosophy. I'm really in a weird place this last couple of days, last couple of weeks. And I've been going through some personal struggles, and it's mostly, I think it's spiritual growth. But I've been wrestling with things. All right. I don't know, and I told Charlie before the show, I don't know how to do this one today without sounding like an arrogant, you fill in the blank. So I think what I'll do is just do it. And for those of you who don't know me, this is why I'm an acquired taste. For those of you who do, I'm going to hope and pray that you have enough affinity for me to allow me a little bit of grace. And then I'll just trust in that. I've been reading a book. It's Biblical Philosophy, a Hebraic Approach to the Old and New Testaments by Drew Johnson. Before you go clicking on this one and scurrying to buy it, let me warn you, this is a book written for scholars. If you do not have a background in philosophy and a dictionary right near your side, this one's probably going to be a tough slog. I'm loving it. That's me. But it's got me reevaluating everything I thought I knew and understood about the Bible, specifically about truth, what truth is, and how do we know it. And that's where I'm going to head today. So don't, I'm not throwing you in the pew today. So just hold on. Don't run off on me yet. If you don't like the quote unquote religious shows, it's not what I'm doing. Not in this case. So just stick with me. But he's got this book, and in it, he also has another book. It's this one. I'm going to order this here probably today. It's Scriptures Knowing, a companion to biblical epistemology. Epistemology is how do we know something? I'll show you that word in a little bit because I looked it up just to make sure I understood it. He's going to argue that the Bible is philosophy. And that in a Hebraic or Eastern mindset, Eastern way of looking at things, part of knowing something is actually having to do it. That's how you know truth, is you actually have to do whatever it is. Like if you want to know how to be a carpenter, you have to do carpentry. If you want to know how to be an artist, you have to do art, whatever type of art it may be for you. If you want to know how to do whatever, he's going to argue that in the Hebraic philosophy, you have to do it. Well, he's going to argue, he's wrestling with in the book, what is philosophy? And what's it got to do with truth? What is truth? And that got me, we'll get to all of that in a minute. I don't have a very well thought out or planned out lesson plan for you today. I'm kind of free thinking this. Sorry, hold on just a second. Come here. Annie needed her uppies.
Puppy cam.
Yep, puppy cam. And for those of you who know me, she's not going to leave us alone until she gets her uppies. Look, I don't have a long time here today. I'm talking to people. She doesn't care about y'all. You're a good girl. Now go find sister and go get the squirrels. All right. So what does it mean to know something? That's here's where I go. And I apologize for that interruption, but I love my dogs. They keep me company during the day. They keep me sane. This is the American Dictionary of the English Language, 1828 Webster's Dictionary. To know. So this is what I do. Okay, what are the words supposed to mean? What is the common understanding of these words? It means to perceive with certainty, to understand clearly, to have a clear and certain perception of truth, fact, or anything that actually exists. To know a thing. It includes precludes all doubt or uncertainty of its existence. We know what we see with our eyes or perceive with our senses. We know that fire and water are different substances. We know that truth and falsehood express ideas incompatible with each other. We know that a circle is not a square. We do not know the truth of reports, nor can we always know what to believe. All right. Do we actually know these things? Do we know that water and fire are different substances? Well, Joe, you can look at them and feel, okay, fine. Those are your senses, but do you know that they're different substances? Just because your senses tell you? And what do I mean by that? Well, modern science tends to think that everything in the universe is either a program running in a computer or just some form of energy. Well, if it's just a form of energy, or if it's just the manifestation of a program, then at its very most basic nature, they're not different substances. They're different manifestations of the substance. They're different ways of presenting it. Well, does that matter? Well, maybe not to the average person, maybe not to you. Matters to people like me. Why? Because I want to understand the truth, reality, as best I can. Okay, well, what the heck does that even mean? What does truth mean? What do I mean when I say I want to understand truth? Why does that matter? Well, in this case, it started because I'm trying to understand my Bible better, but it overlaps into, like, I saw a meme on Facebook, and I got attacked because I shared it. Some of my liberal friends, and I do have them, jumped on me, say, well, that's not true. Blah, 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 blah. Well, so-and-so didn't say that. So I said, you're right. They didn't. I said, but because it was accredited to somebody else, does that mean it's not true? And he goes, well, you can't post fake quotes. Well, folks, this is pseudepigrapha. In the Bible, you have these books that are supposedly written in somebody else's name, and he or she probably didn't write them. Okay. Like Joshua and Deuteronomy Deuteronomy was almost definitely not written by Moses, because it covers Moses' death. So who wrote about Moses after Moses was dead? And, like the book of Joshua, there's parts of there that's written about after he's dead. So it's might have been written in his name, even though he didn't. So what are we going to do? This modern standard today? Well, you say so-and-so wrote it. He didn't write it, so you got to throw it out. Why? Does it mean there's no truth in it? No, not at all. It's a customary form from ancient times to write a book and attach somebody else's name to it. They weren't trying to deceive you. They were trying to lend credibility to what was being said. It's what they did. It's how they thought. So today we'll come along and we'll apply our modern, Western standards to this. Well, you can't trust that. Why? Because so-and-so didn't say that. But is the essence of what is being said true? Okay. Back to what is true. So the knowledge was certainty of knowing a fact. So, okay, I looked up fact. Anything done or that comes to pass, an act, a deed, an effect produced or achieved, an event, witnesses are introduced into a court to prove a fact. Facts are stubborn things, etc., etc. It's reality. Truth, as in fact. So we say, indeed, blah, blah, blah. Reality. Truth. Okay. Well, what if we can't perceive reality? What if we only think we can? Yes, sir?
But what is reality?
Exactly.
Because that's something just this weekend I've been dealing with. And, because, and some people even say this outright today, my reality is different than your reality. And
but now
so
they may not be, are they wrong?
Well, that's a point I'm trying to get to is who is correct? What is a fact? How do we know a fact is a fact is a fact? And how do we know that our reality or our perception of reality is the correct perception of reality? This is the things that I've started to think about as I'm dealing with some of these individuals that, in my view, they seem to be acting in an irrational manner, and they're not in the same reality that I'm in. And so this causes, I guess you could call it cognitive dissonance between us. And so I begin to contemplate, well, how do I know that my reality is the true reality and their reality is in fact in error? And, I do have some things that I observe in relationship to this, and that, the way I act in certain ways, I get certain responses that seem to indicate to me that my reality is, at least sensible, and it seems to repeat itself when I do these certain things, in certain ways. And theirs does not seem to do that. But, this is difficult. This is why philosophy can be challenging.
Well, people would tell me, what's it matter, Joe? I'll tell you what it matters. If the reality of Islam and the reality of the American ideal are put head to head within the same confines of government and nationality, same piece of geography,
yeah,
they cannot coexist.
They cannot. Yeah. And
that's because they are literally based on and in two negating realities, two concepts of reality.
Right. And
one must eradicate the other. Must.
Yeah, that's that cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about, in how well, I guess the question is, can those things be resolved? Because, I'm looking at this and I'm like, can they coexist together? You see these bumper stickers all the time, these coexist, they got a cross and a, Star of David and, whatever pagan symbols and everything. Oh, we all just need to get along and
well, I'll put
is
this
that
in
even
Star
possible?
Trek. I'll put this in Star Trek terms for you there, Bones, and I'll be Scotty. Can matter and antimatter exist in the same place, in the same space at the same time?
From my understanding, no. Of course, well, I
Okay.
don't know, maybe in a black hole. I'm not sure. Black holes are interesting things,
But that's the point, though, is that, okay, so you're getting into exactly where I'm, okay, boy, am I going to blow some minds. You're getting into exactly what I was talking about. Let's say that physics says, yes, they can. Now, that means I'm wrong, right? That they can exist in the same place where I was trying to say they can't. No, I'm not wrong. I'm still, even if the factual evidence of what I say is incorrect, that does not mean that the point I was trying to make is wrong. And that's what I've run into on Facebook, is people looking at memes that the point is still valid. I did say in the Star Trek world, didn't I?
Right. Yeah.
So I framed it in a paradigm where matter and antimatter annihilate each other according to that worldview, that story. Now, it may be fictional. Okay, fine. But it's real in that sense, in the sense of that storyline. So now what about these human beings that get caught up in cosplay and they get so involved in it that they start living in those worlds? Now, where's reality for them?
Yeah, good point.
And how do you know that their reality is not true? You can judge it against your reality.
Right.
How do you know
That's where I
yours
was
is
going.
true?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going, is how do we know?
Here's one way to know. Here's one way. In my opinion, and that's all I can tell you, the closer you are to the truth, and we'll get to those definitions again in a minute, but the closer you get to the true reality of this universe, the less violent you become. The people who are farthest away from the truth become the most violent if you try to expose them to their error. Now, why would that be?
I can see that.
Because there's a part of them that knows somehow that they are not living according to the reality of the universe, and they do not want to give up on their truth, their reality, their construct.
That makes some sense.
Okay. Yeah, and the closer you are to the real truth, the more benevolent you are. Why? There's no need to force my will or my perception on you if I'm closer to the truth, because I will understand you. You won't understand me, which means you're the one that's going to react violently. You know, proverbial you.
Right. Yeah. I've seen.
Now, in the Bible, how is that expressed? This is the philosophy of the Bible. What does the darkness does not understand, the light shone into the darkness does not understand the light.
Yeah, like
we'll say, well, that's just religious crap. No, it isn't. It's using imagery to teach a philosophical truth. The light, in this case, truth, real truth, reality as it actually exists, whether you can perceive it or not. But reality as it actually exists shines into the darkness, a world of confusion. And the confusion does not understand the reality, but the reality does understand the confusion.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've talked about on the show before is, when you're in a debate, if you will, over these kind of differences in worldviews, in my opinion, again, because we're talking here, about these things, is it the person that, in my opinion, is not based in my same reality, my same worldview, because I try to have a transcendent worldview, and I try to show them that their worldview does not line up. Yeah, very quickly they devolve into ad hominem and those kind of attacks. They get angry and they strike out and call you names and all these things. And I think you're right. I think you're onto something there, because they know deep inside that their worldview is not correct, but they are still clinging to that because they want control.
How could they know that If they lived in a true reality, how could they know that? Even if it's subconscious, how could they possibly know it if they were in control of their reality? And that's the point. They're not.
They're not. They want
Yeah.
to be, but they're not.
Yes.
And that's that conflict I think that they have, is
So
that desire for wanting to control their reality, but yet they're failing in that because they can't. And that's where that cognitive dissonance comes in between, what we would call truth and what they see as their truth.
all right. Now I got a piece of passage up. Stay with me, Charlie. I'm not preaching at you religiously, folks. The book I'm reading argues that what I've got here in front of me is supposedly written in Greek. It may have been in Hebrew at one point originally, but John 18, verses 33 through 38. And even non-believers know this passage or know of it. I'm going to read it to you in a minute, but it's written in Greek, but it's using Hebrew philosophy, a Greek language written to Hellenized, Greek thinkers, but it's using Hebrew philosophy. And that's part of what he's trying to argue for. This passage is actually a philosophical argument or point. I'll explain in a minute. It begins here. Therefore, Pilate entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?" And Pilate answered, "Am I not a Jew? Am I?" Oh, it says, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done?" And Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." Therefore, Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, "I find no guilt in him." All right. How's that philosophy? Several things going on here. Pilate goes, "What is truth?" In the Hebrew mind, truth was standing right in front of him at that very moment. So if I wanted to do this a little more in the Hebrew way, and this is Jeremiah talking to the king. The kingdom is going to be shattered, and he throws the pot down and shatters it. He's showing you what's going to happen. When Pilate says, "Well, what is truth?" He was talking the truth right in front of him, embodied as a living man. The philosophy is that the truth was right in front of him, and Pilate could not recognize it. It was literally talking to him, and he could not recognize it. Pilate did a worldly thing. What is truth? Your truth, my truth. Nobody knows what truth is. Now, theologically, what did this just tell me? Well, I'm waiting for the millennial reign when the Messiah returns. That is not what the Messiah told you his reign is. He just told you my kingdom, the millennial reign, when I am king, is not of this world. It's a spiritual kingdom. If it were of this world, then his defendants would fight,
Right.
his servants. They
And
don't.
He was declaring he was already a king at that point.
Yes, he was. So when he returns, it's not that he's going to return to set up his kingdom. You can't twice become a king. When he returns, he defeats his enemies and hands everything back to the Father, and then the world is remade. Yeah. There's no room for a second millennial reign like we've been talking about. It's right in the logic of the scriptures. Now, up until this point in my life, I've always told you, follow the concept. It's the same thing. This author, Johnson, is using a different language for the same concept, the same idea. And that's what I've been trying to get at here for myself, for my own understanding. What do we mean by idea, concept, truth? What does it all mean? What does it mean? How do I know these things? How can I possibly understand them? Well, for one point, I tell you this all the time. Nobody listens to me. I don't mean you don't, but the world doesn't seem to listen to me. When I tell them that the Messiah, what is he? What is Messiah in the Bible? He is literally the word of the king made into a body. He's incarnate, right? God incarnate. I looked it up. To clothe with flesh, to embody in flesh. It invest with, okay, well, that's there. Okay, I want a modern definition. So I go to Word Nick. Invest with bodily nature and form, embodied in human form, personified. The word was draped in flesh and blood. It was draped. It was clothed in it. But that doesn't mean it's just a spirit living in a human body. It's one and the same. So what the Messiah is that he is the word of Yahweh, the Torah, projected into this material world in the form of flesh. Now, do you remember earlier when I was telling you that how do I know that fire and water are different things? Well, what if they actually are just different forms of energy? Different projections of that energy into our material world. One way of projecting it, it looks like water. The other way, it looks and feels and acts like fire. Okay? If the Father projects himself into his creation one way, his word enters into this creation clothed in flesh so that I can see, touch, feel, hear him, and understand him better. He's showing me philosophical truths, philosophical concepts, universal ideas that are true throughout all time and space, but he's showing it to me in the form of a man who was standing right there in front of Pilate, and Pilate didn't recognize it. But what if I need to teach you some other way or show you some other way? What if I need to project myself into the spiritual world? And that's what the fall is, folks. The fall in Eden was when the spiritual world and the material world were separated, that you can no longer cross the veil. We can't. Spiritual beings can. But then a physical fleshly body, Paul tells us flesh cannot occupy the spiritual realm. Does he not say that? So, okay, how does the Father project himself into the spiritual realm? As a spirit. Oh, the Holy Spirit. Okay, I get that now. So maybe in one realm, you got to present yourself as water. In another realm, you got to present yourself as fire. Now, this is a truth. But is it a truth in your experience in this world? Can fire and water still be the same thing at the same time? Okay, let me take you to another movie we all know. Say, you said that Darth Vader killed my father. You lied. No, what I told you, Luke, was true from a certain point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you something. Does perception affect truth? Well, if we have capital T truth, as I like to say it, universal truth, perception shouldn't change truth. But what if I need to change the way you look at something in order to help you see the true nature of reality? What if I need to change the way or the direction you're looking at something or the position from which you observe it so that you will get a new perception or understanding? Did I change the nature of what it was you were looking at? Or did I move your perspective to help you get a better, fuller, more complete view of it in hopes that you would better understand what it was you've been trying to figure out? Now, here's the thing I'm running into. Most people don't want to move. So I'm thinking of one individual. He's a friend of mine. He is a friend. I've known him for 20-something years. I count him as a friend. He's a liberal. He will tell his friends, hey, be careful with Joe. Joe will look at both sides. So the only reason he's my friend, otherwise he would have gotten rid of me because he's got TDS real bad. But I ask him sometimes, hey, look, stop. Look at what you're focusing on. Look at what's all around it. And focus on the idea or the concept, not the way it's being projected, because the projection can manipulate you. You've got to dig down deeper. He will do that. His friends won't. They don't care. He will at least take my hand and walk a couple steps off to the side and look at it differently. Doesn't mean it changes his mind yet. Okay, I get that. But at least he sees that I'm not just looking at it from the position of the GOP and MAGA. I'm looking at it from all positions. He also sees that I know how to look at it from his position. I will acknowledge his perspective and then tell him I see it, and I'll explain it to him the way he sees it. So he hears his thinking coming back to him. He goes, oh, Joe does understand it. He's not just saying it. He does understand what I'm seeing. So why is he rejecting it? That's the thing my friend will not ask himself. He will not ask himself, Joe just explained it to me exactly the way I would, so he does see it my way, but why does he reject it? He is not wanting to see, because I'll do the same thing with the Republicans. I'll explain it exactly in a way a Republican friend would accept, and he doesn't understand why I've rejected him. Well, this happens to me with believers in the Bible too. They've got their ideas, and I will explain what they're seeing their way, but I won't agree with them. And the thing I'm running into is these people that they'll, okay, well, yeah, that's exactly what but they won't ever ask me, well, why don't you agree with me then? You see it and say you understand it. Why won't you agree? Because I don't agree with you. I'm seeing something different. And they will never come with me so I can show them the different perspective. What am I looking at? I could be wrong. They don't even want to know if I am. They don't want to find out. They won't even investigate it. Why? Why? What is it that terrifies them? And I mean terrifies, because I've been watching people. That's what it is. It's fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what do the angels always tell the prophets and the people that they appear to? Have no fear. What does that guy say? What does his teacher say in Dune? Fear is the mind killer. What is Yoda always trying to teach Luke? Don't be afraid. Don't give in to fear. Fear is a mind killer. So why are people so afraid of facing truth? We'll take a bottom of the hour break. We'll come back in 3 minutes. I'm not done. We'll see you in 3. I don't know whether or not you're back yet, but I'm going to continue. And Charlie, you can pop in if and when you feel, the urge. Back to Webster's dictionary, truth. This is what I was trained to do, and it serves me well. It doesn't master me, I master it, but it is a tool in my hand to always go back. What is the word supposed to mean? And if you don't do this, you and I cannot communicate. So even you do this to some extent. You know what the words are supposed to mean. But I've been trained to go back to the dictionaries, and I'm using the Webster's on purpose. It's an older understanding, not modern, because modern language is being corrupted. Truth, conformity to fact or to reality. Well, we've already looked at the definition of fact. It says exact accordance with that which is, or has been, or shall be. The truth of history constitutes its whole value. We rely on the truth of the scriptural prophecies. Okay, got it. Number 2, true state of facts or things. The duty of a court or justice is to discover the truth. Witnesses are sworn to declare the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Definition 3, conformity of words to thoughts, which is called moral truth, etc., etc. Truth. All right. I use capital T truth for the truth, the universal truth. Well, we've just been discussing things that might cause somebody to say, well, how do you know there's a universal truth? You've heard it. I know you've heard this, and you just dismissed it as being, it's just a cute saying. I think, therefore I am. That is an absolute rock solid proof. You cannot break that. That is a fact. I exist. You exist. Now, can you know the actual nature of your existence? No. You can only know what your senses tell you and what your mind deduces. Your mind can be wrong. So can your senses. So the Hebrew way of thinking, the Eastern way of thinking, which is always sense-based, concrete, 5 senses, that can be wrong. Your senses can deceive you. But the Greek way of thinking and knowing and perceiving truth, where it's all in the mind can perceive all truth just by reasoning. That's the Greek idea. That can way be wrong, and often is more wrong than the Hebrew way. They can both be wrong. They can also both be right at the same time. Now, if I'm Greek-minded and I perceive a truth in an abstract form, and you're Hebrew-minded and you perceive the exact same truth in a material, concrete, a form that you can see, hear, touch, and smell. I'm Greek. I can only understand it mentally. Can we talk to each other? If the Hebrew cannot understand abstraction, can he talk to the Greek? Well, no. That would be a truth. You're thinking in 2 different paradigms. You've got, if all you are is concrete, you cannot talk to the totally abstract. But the thing is, the Hebrew does think in the abstract, but they have to communicate it differently because their language doesn't allow for the abstract thinking. They don't have words for it, so they communicate it differently through stories, through allegories, through parables. Now, the Greek mind, he can or she can communicate in a concrete form, and they often did. So they can communicate to each other, but they have to stop and think about it. They have to understand my audience thinks concretely, or the other way around, my audience primarily thinks abstractly. So now you have to talk in a way that the other person will understand. We don't do that. We don't do that. And this is why we have a divide in the world. Politically, for the most part, not entirely. There's, in my opinion, there's spiritual reasons for it as well. But this is why we don't talk well with each other. We can't communicate very well with each other. So I looked up another word here, metaphysics. Huh? Yeah. It after and physics. It is said that the name was given to the science by Aristotle of his followers, who considered the science of natural bodies, physics, as the first in the order of studies, and the science of the mind or intelligence to be the second. So the first thing to study, according to the Greeks, is the physical, that which you can see, see, hear, smell, taste, etc., grab a hold of. And then the secondary area of knowledge is study of the mind. So I keep reading this, and it says the science of the principles and causes of all things existing, hence the science of mind or intelligence. This science comprehends ontology, or the science which treats of the nature, essence, and qualities of attributes of being. In other words, what makes a cat a cat? Okay, so the physical world would say fur, forelegs, tail, whiskers, etc., etc., etc. The Greek mind says, yeah, I know what a cat looks like, but what makes it a cat? What is the unseen essence that makes it cat? Well, if all you are is a physical-minded individual, you go, that makes no sense. But doesn't it? If I see a picture of a cat, a painting of a cat, a real cat, if I see a figurine of a cat, those are all different things. If you are a physical-minded person, well, one's a picture, one's a painting, one's a real cat, one's a figurine. But they all have the essence of cat. So the Greek is saying, what is the essence? So he might find truth in the essence of cat, nature of cat. But the Hebrew might only find truth in the actual manifestation of cat. Well, this is a figurine that's made to look like a cat. This is a painting made to look like a cat. You know, there's a photograph of a cat. This here is a real cat. Well, it might seem like a nothing burger to a lot of people, but we can get in a fight over this. That's a figurine, that's a painting, that's a picture. None of those are cats. This is a real cat, Joe. It's the only real cat in the world. This one right here that I'm petting. The Greek would be like, no. That's just a particular cat. That is not cat. That's not nature of cat. That's not the wholeness of cat. That's just a particular cat. But that's not what it means to be cat. That's not a representation of everything that is cat. So the Greek mind, the picture, the painting, the figurine, those are all part of what it means to be cat. Now you go, okay, Joe, this is all just leaving me. Is it? Is it? Why is it? If I show you a figurine of a cat, how do you know it's a cat? Charlie, pop on here for a minute. What's this?
Well, that is a computer.
Ha. No. Perfect answer. Most people say phone. Well, if I held up an old-fashioned phone, a rotary dial phone, is that the same thing as this?
No. But yes.
Does it do the same? Yes, exactly. So you are at least grasping where I'm going with all of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this gets into how do you know something? It's called epistemology, the branch of philosophy that examines the nature of knowledge, its presuppositions, its foundations, and its extent and validity. How do you know? So this is all tied together, all of it. Philosophy, literally the love of wisdom. Okay. Logic is a tool. Logic is the art of thinking and reasoning justly, correctly, what I call right reasoning. So here's the thing. Hold on, Charlie. Here's the thing, folks. If you've been following me, I've just been talking in a big old circle. And I have been. So from a Greek mind, logic mind, this is a fallacy. It's called circular reasoning. Now, if it's a fallacy, it would mean that I have not conveyed anything of any value to you when it comes to knowledge, truth, or understanding. Charlie, has this been a valueless conversation so far?
I wouldn't say so.
So then how does the Greek explain the fact that I have literally been circular reasoning? I have. This word leads to that word, leads to that word, leads back to the word I start. That's a fallacy. That's circular reasoning. I'm not supposed to trust any conclusions drawn from that. But yet we're getting value out of this. I know you are, if you're paying attention. How does that work? It's a form of reasoning that does not conform to logic, or it's a different type of logic.
Yes.
It's a different type of logic. Logic is just a tool. The Greek thinks that pure reason and logic can give him everything he wants about understanding the universe. That right there is a fallacy. It's a false assumption. So the person who thinks science can teach them everything they need to know about, okay, fine. What is love? What is love? What does science say love is?
Well, it depends on who you talk to.
Well, most scientists will tell you it's a biochemical reaction in the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. How do they test that?
Well, they can check brain waves and maybe see that certain parts of the brain light up when
Oh, so
you
they find
associate it with.
correlation.
Yes.
Is correlation causality?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so they're making an assumption based on what?
They
Their
are.
presuppositions.
Right.
So they're making an assumption based on what they already assume to be true.
Right.
Is that science?
It's the beginning of science, but it's not complete.
Pseudoscience. It's not the scientific
not getting
method.
all the way to
Yeah.
because you've got to make sure your premises are
Well,
solid.
not only
before
that, you
go
cannot
forward.
allow your presuppositions to influence your premises.
Right. Yeah, that's what you got to. Yeah.
So how does the scientist know what's true? The scientist has no way to filter for their own biases.
That's the real challenge of science is setting up your scientific procedure to eliminate bias, and we as humans can't do that entirely.
Not entirely. There is
Not
only
entirely.
one discipline. To the best of my knowledge, there's only one discipline that can even come close to doing that. That's philosophy. Now, I don't mean philosophy. Theology is a philosophy.
Yes.
But when you remove the philosophy from science, it's no longer philosophy. It's a religion. By definition, form and function. We could get into that. I don't want to. Do you know what science used to be called? What was science originally called, Charlie? Do you know?
I don't know what it was originally called, but
The philosophy of nature or natural sciences.
Yeah, I would
it
say
was called
that
philosophy of. All right.
Yeah, that would make sense.
When Stephen Hawking made in his second big famous book, he said, philosophy is dead. The idiot didn't realize he just killed everything he had done with his entire life, said it was useless. Because he turned it into a religion. Now, he wouldn't see that. Why? Because he can't filter for his own biases. Why? Because he gave up on philosophy. Philosophy is a way of life, a way of thinking, a way of looking at things, a way of perceiving the world around you. And it's meant to teach you to live according to what you have decided is truth, what is right, what is wrong, what is truth. It is meant to teach you what the virtuous and moral life is, and to walk in it, otherwise known as the way to live. The way. Does that mean anything to you, Charlie?
Yeah, quite a bit.
The scriptures call it the way.
Yeah.
The philosophy of scripture is the way. Now, let me ask you a question. Now, I am talking to believers. If you are living in a Torah observant Hebrew community with the Middle Eastern mindset, yes, the Bible's going to make total sense to that person. Why do you do these things? Why don't you do these things? A lot of your rituals are meant to teach you. The biblical idea of knowing is to also do. Why? Because they exist primarily in the concrete world with the senses. They're action-based. What's its purpose? Okay. There's abstract concept in that, but they're primarily physical thinkers. Now, how do I take the ritual things that you're doing to teach you to know? Your sacrifices are to know the cost of the cross, to know the value of Messiah, to know who owns it and who you don't, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how do you know that, Joe? Because the Messiah, the Yahweh rather, in the Bible says, I do not desire sacrifice. Right. So how do you take that clear statement, I don't want sacrifices, and put it up against all these sacrifices Moses told him to do? The sacrifices were meant to help teach
the consequences.
Charlie, is there anything in the Bible that tells us that the laws were meant to be teachers?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Paul very clearly said that, the law of Moses, if you want to call it that, was a schoolmaster for us. It was to teach us.
So now how do I bring those concepts and teachings into the Greek world? If I've got to follow the Torah, the laws of Moses in a Greek world, What you're telling me is I have to transform that world into a Hebrew culture. Charlie, to the best of your knowledge, does the Bible ever once tell you to change a nation's government or culture?
Not exactly. I mean, it
Does Paul
talks
say he
about
changes all people to become like him, or he becomes all things to all people?
he becomes all things to all people.
Why? What's he trying to do? Is he trying to become Greek, or is he trying to talk to them in a way they'll understand?
Exactly. He's trying to go to them in a way that they would understand it. And that's why, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about all the different ways that the Bible communicates different ideas in different ways, so that hopefully from whatever culture and worldview that you are coming from, something in the Bible will strike you and say, oh, now I understand this because I see this in my worldview, and I see how this conforms to what the biblical worldview is. And that's
Yes.
why you've got these prophecies and allegories and parables that have multiple meanings piled one upon another. And they're all because one of these hopefully is going to strike you in the right way so that you'll say, oh, now I get it.
The Bible invites you to move on. It comes at you from different perspectives to try and teach you the same truth.
Mm-hmm.
And once one clicks, it invites you to now do real philosophy. Now that one of these passages clicks with you and you get the concept, where else is that concept being taught in the scriptures?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And in what way? Comment on the board from Sailor Son, this says, but what does it mean to be all things to all people? We know that Paul believed in the Torah. He says so. We know that Paul followed the Torah. He says so. So we know he's not breaking it. When he means he becomes all things, he's talking about I mimic them. If they're going to talk in Greek, I become Greek. If they're going to talk, he's quoting Greek poetry in the gospel, in his letters. He uses Greek panthology, the Greek pantheon of multiple gods. He uses that to reason with them. What he's telling us is, I enter into your world to talk to you about spiritual eternal principles.
Right.
And did Messiah ever tell us to change a nation? He said we could tell a nation to go jump into the ocean. Most people think it's a mountain. That's not what he was talking about. But what he told us to do was make disciples. Now, if we were to focus on making disciples, we will eventually change the nation. That did happen. That's what happened to Rome.
Yeah, that'll happen. Yeah.
But now when you start looking at the concepts that are being taught and understand that they have to be brought into different cultures, Paul is going to have to talk to you in terms of your culture to teach you the concept. If he convinces you to adopt that philosophy, Yahweh, God's philosophy, what we would call his word, his Torah, his way of living, the way, then things will change all on their own. But it won't necessarily, this is what I've told you before. The anthropologists found the 10 Commandments followed by every culture in the world throughout all time. Say, well, some people ate their dead. Yes. What were they doing? Showing respect for the dead. Well, that's not the 10 Commandments. Yes, it is. It's wrapped up in the 6th commandment. Honor thy father and mother. Well, Joe, that's not what it says. Exactly. You're looking for word explanations. That is not what the Bible's trying to teach you. It's trying to teach you a concept that you then apply in whatever culture and circumstances you live in. How do I know that's true? Okay, Charlie, Leviticus and Deuteronomy tell me who I can and cannot have sex with, right? Do they ever? They define improper sexual relationships, but it never once says I cannot have sex with my grandmother. Do you think that's permissible under the laws of Moses?
No, it would not be.
Well, it doesn't say that. So how would you get to that conclusion?
Because if you follow the idea of not uncovering your father's nakedness or your mother's nakedness and so on and so forth, that would continue down the line and would make sense that would not be.
That's called logical extension, folks. What Charlie just did is philosophy. Now, Charlie, Leviticus and Deuteronomy never once define what marriage is. Do you think Moses expected the people to understand what marriage was supposed to be legally.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he expected,
Okay.
but he never told them what it is. He never defined it for them.
No.
So they're free to make marriage up in any way they want, right?
No, because there were cultural norms in place at that time that he didn't have to explain what marriage was to them, because it was already an established cultural norm within that particular society. Now, if you extend that to what we have in our society today, you got to explain it, because our cultural norms no longer hold that philosophy as a cultural norm. So there's a difference there, and we have to explain that in more literal terms for someone to actually understand what needs to happen. So yeah, this is important stuff, because this is just like you're talking about. You've got to go to the concepts or the ideas behind these things that we're trying to discuss here, so that we can have a common understanding of what is expected.
Okay.
You
So
know,
now
it's
let's go
kind of
back.
like, you know, we've talked about this in our thing, and in their scriptures that, you know, philosophers and religious people and scholars debate, like, you know, head coverings for women in the New Testament. You know, oh well, that's just, you know, it was just a, you know, that's just a one-off. We don't have to worry about. Why was that important? Well, the only
Because of the
reason Paul
angels.
had to bring that up is because they were violating a cultural norm.
Yes.
At that time, in the Hebraic culture, that was a cultural norm. But in the Greek culture, the Hellenized culture, they were getting away from that cultural norm. And he was saying, there's a reason for you to keep this cultural norm in your society, and this is what you should be doing. And we look at that now and say, oh, we don't need that. We're way past it. Are we? Or is there still a reason to be doing that kind of thing? Maybe we're not understanding the real reason behind that cultural norm that was established back then.
Now, if you're a Bible believer, you know that the wheat and the tares are non-believers. We're not supposed to uproot the non-believer. Let them go. Let them. It's a form of tolerance. That's what it is. The concept is tolerance. Okay, let's go back to matter and antimatter. In this case, the American ideal, the founding of the country, and Islam. The founding of the country is, we're told, religious tolerance and divorce of religion from government and everything. It's not exactly what the founders did, but let's just go with that ideal. Let's just go with that for now. Tolerance of other religions. Islam does not tolerate other religions. Islam means submission. You will submit, or you will be conquered, or you will be killed. One of the two. One of the three. Submission, conquered, in which case you become a dhimmi, which is a way, it's a slave. A dhimmi is a slave, second-class citizen, or you get killed. Okay? Against the Western way, well, we got to tolerate them. Does the Western form of tolerance mean that I have to tolerate you until you've conquered me and killed me? Is that what tolerance means? The answer is no. Now, how do I get there? Look up the definition of tolerance. It doesn't say that there are limits to it. It doesn't give you limits. So where do I get this idea of tolerance of religious, other religions? Where do I get the idea that there's a limit to it? I will tolerate you until you tread on me. Once you tread on me, you've given up your rights. I don't have to tolerate you anymore because you have attacked me. Joe, where do you get all that from? The concept of tolerance that the founding fathers applied to religious freedom. You got to go back and look at what they were arguing. We've boiled it all down to one word, and then we've morphed the meaning of that word by giving it a modern definition. That is not the way the founding fathers taught. That wasn't the path. They were all about individual rights and liberties. To accept a cancer into their culture that was going to destroy them, they would not have done that. How do you know, Joe? Do you know how old the sedition laws are, the anti-sedition laws are, and what they were all about, what caused them? It was intolerance of an attack on the system that they had just built. The founders established that law over top of the free speech protections in the First Amendment. The truth is not always easy to find. Truth, this is what I was telling you about. What is truth? I'll go get a definition, or I get this, or I get that. It's what you believe. The Greek mind would say, what is the essence of truth? Remember, just like the cat. If you're going to show me a picture or give me a definition or explain it your way, is that your truth? Or have you explained to me the essence of truth? And that's what I've been trying to get to here in the last couple of weeks. What is the essence of truth? Specifically for me, how does it apply to the scriptures? But still, what is the essence of truth? It was standing right in front of Pilate and he didn't recognize it. I don't ever want to make Pilate's mistake. I want to be able to face the monster in the face. I also want to be able to recognize capital T truth when I see it. Any thoughts or comments, Charlie? I'm yacked out for today.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is,
This is a Jimmy Zinger show.
Well, it is. It is. I'm surprised he hasn't called in. Maybe can't watch it today for some reason or something. But
probably busy.
Yeah, he'll probably get it. He'll probably email you later or something. But this is important stuff, though, because gosh, it's making me think and kind of evaluate, where I'm at and how to deal with others and stuff like that. Because it can be difficult dealing with people that have these different worldviews and such, and especially when they're not willing to, like even your friend, you said, listen to me a little bit, but then he won't change. He won't, fully consider your position and such. That's frustrating sometimes.
He doesn't even want to look at it.
And even, I guess the hardest part is when you're confronted with this, with even people that are supposed to be believers and supposed to be seeking that truth, and they're unwilling to fully evaluate this and put forth some effort to, fully evaluate their own positions and understand why they believe what they believe. Because that's something over the past couple of years. Because for a while I was kind of rudderless for a while. I knew a few things that I kind of believed, but if I were asked to defend them, I wouldn't have been able to do that very well. Now today, I can defend a lot of my positions a lot better because I know why I know what I know.
Yeah, you just explained my two shelves. What I know, what I think I know. Let me redo it. What I know, because I can explain why I know it. What I believe. Right. What I believe to be true. Is belief knowing?
Not fully, no.
No, it's suspicion.
Yes, yeah. It's
how many people
right?
do you know? How many people are you aware of? Now let me confuse the language. How many people in your lives of whom you're aware think that they know something because they believe it to be true?
Oh.
And because they believe it's true.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The scriptures, that's the man of 2 Thessalonians 2. That's the person of law, the one who thinks they can believe it into existence, speak it into existence. That is literally what the scriptures tell you is trying to be God. You're trying to take the place of the creator.
And that's one of the major problems we have in our Western society is we put too much stake in a belief, a thinking belief, I believe in Jesus Christ. So therefore, because I believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior and the Messiah, I am saved and I don't have to worry about anything because he paid for all my sins and I'm done. You might want to evaluate that a little bit further.
Yeah, because that's not what the scripture says.
That's not what the scriptures say. No, they do not.
He made propitiation for sin, but
yes. So we've got to very carefully evaluate that, what we call a belief, and dig in there some more in the scriptures and find out what that belief really means. Because just having because I can pull out a scripture right now that'll knock this one flat on its head, because it says in the scriptures that even the demons believe and shudder. And so just that logical belief in your head is not enough. Sorry, it's not enough.
Propitiation for sin, the act of gaining or regaining the favor or goodwill of someone or something or an act. So in other words, he didn't atone in the way we think. He made propitiation. He made it possible for you to enter back into the grace of the Creator. But how? This is all about the northern kingdom and the house of Israel, folks.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah.
You do not get in to the kingdom through, and this is ideas, this is concepts. You don't get in. You either convert to Judaism, which might be dangerous, seeing how they're under an old covenant. But there might be a chance, because scripture says that they were not divorced. Okay, so that's an iffy proposition, but you either convert to Judaism,
possibility,
or you come in through the house of Israel. There's no other way into the kingdom. Because there's no other way to have access to the inheritance.
Right. So we have to
definitions.
We have to receive an inheritance in order to enter into the kingdom of Yahweh.
Isn't that what the Messiah said he was going to do, is share his inheritance with us?
Oh, so
his inheritance. Who granted the inheritance to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Was it Yahweh, or was it the Devar of Yahweh?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Yes, exactly. The answer is yes. So when the Messiah says, I'll share my inheritance with you, everybody thinks, well, when he dies, I get his inheritance. No, it's not what he's talking about. He's Yahweh. What he's saying is, you will get a share in the inheritance that I granted to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then to Ephraim, and then to those who are grafted in. Concept. So how do I know that's the truth? Because that understanding fits with everything else in the whole of Scripture. The idea that Jesus is just a man who paid for your sin like the lamb did because of his blood. The only way for you to have access to the inheritance is for Ephraim to be betrothed back to Yahweh. Because right now, before the cross, Ephraim was divorced. No inheritance. So the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were no longer in force. And the only way to get them back was the father had to die, which is exactly what happened on the cross. And the only way for Judah to get their inheritance is for the father to die so that the will can go into effect. What happened on the cross? Yahweh died in the form of a man. Well, Yahweh can't die. Yes, he can, if he's in the form of a man, because the man can die. Does the spirit die? Is Yahweh spirit? So the man died, but the spirit didn't. Yeah, I know. Blows mind, right? It's a paradox. It's not a contradiction. It can be resolved. And to quote one of my favorite characters from the movie Platoon, it's simple. Free your mind, your rear end will follow. Trust as a child, faith as a child. It works. Concept. Ideas. They can be discussed in the concrete Hebrew or the abstract Greek. They both work. All right. How'd I cover that, Charlie? We good?
So what you're saying is that there had to be this physical death in order for this covenant to be renewed. So
otherwise, Yahweh would be an adulterer per his own law, in which case he's not Yahweh. Say, well, he can't be Yahweh unless he can do that without being a... No. These false paradigm arguments, and how can he be God if he can't make a lever big, make a rock too heavy for himself to lift? Oh, geez. Go away with that. That's false reasoning. It's a false presumption of the nature of the creator. It's bad logic. It can be destroyed easy. What you got to understand is he chooses not to do these things. I mean, how do you make a rock you can't lift? Well, he made the whole universe. He can lift the whole universe. How do you fit a rock that can't be lifted into that universe? What? See, you made a
Right.
bad presumption when you posed the question. Bye-bye. Move along. So, anything else, folks?
I'm gonna have to
Very
chew on
good
some
for
of
a
this for a
cranny
while.
eater. Yeah, I saw I saw the wheels turning in your face toward the end of the first half hour. I saw them. I can see them. You're ooh. So all I'm going to do is end the show by telling you, welcome to my world, or inside my head.
Yeah.
So
Well, hopefully, at least we got you thinking. That's where we're.
yeah, because trust
trying
me,
to go.
folks, it's a lot more complicated inside my gourd than what I've been giving you. I don't mean that to sound condescending. No. I'm just saying that I've been living at a much higher level of this, wrestling with this and trying to understand what it means for my understanding of the world. And that's why I'm an acquired taste. All right, Charlie, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you for being here, folks. We hope that we enrich your world and your life in some way, shape, or form. This is not one of the easiest shows to listen to, but I'm happy with it. I liked the way it turned out. I like where it went because it helps me. Hopefully it helps you. We love each and every one of you. We thank you for being here. If you like what we're doing, hit the like buttons. If you haven't already done so, subscribe, hit the bell so you'll know when we do new shows. Share the show if you think it would benefit any of your friend groups on social media. Introduce me any way you want. Just make sure you let them know that I'm an acquired taste. It takes a while to get used to me. Otherwise, see you tomorrow. We're back in Genesis again. Wednesday, we'll be in Jeremiah. Thursday, we're teaching Islam. Friday, we're back in Judah's scepter and Joseph's birthright. Till we see each other again, y'all stay safe. Take care. Yahweh bless. Bye-bye.